And we're going to record it, everyone, just in case we can use this video later on. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to be able to share our programs with everyone and our partnership. And we've been at apprenticeship for a very long time, and we've got a really good model working here that we hope all of you will find some value in. And if you go to the next slide, Amelia, I'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Chris Cagle. I'm Regional Affairs Manager at the South Bay Workforce Investment Board in California, and I'm in charge of the Special Projects Department and Marketing Department, and I oversee our apprenticeship programs for youth. Tiffany?
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Miller. I'm the Dean of Apprenticeships at West Los Angeles College. We're located in Culver City. And I oversee all of our apprenticeship programs and many different workforce development initiatives. Jose?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jose Anaya. I'm the Dean of Community Advancement at Camino College, located in Torrance. And I'm in charge of all economic and workforce development, including our apprenticeship programs.
And I'd also like to mention Tiffany has her president here today, President Limbaugh with West LA College. Thank you, Jim, for joining us.
You bet.
Appreciate that and being so supportive of our programs. And then I wanted to also introduce my colleague, Amelia Claywan, who is in the background, always taking care of everything. Appreciate all her help. So let's go to the next slide. And we are going to cover these things. We're first going to hear a message from Secretary Walsh from Department of Labor, and we're going to give a quick overview of apprenticeship and then talk about each of our apprenticeship initiatives at the Workforce Board, West LA College, and El Camino College, and then share some funding opportunities that are available to our partners and everyone on this call throughout California, and one in particular throughout the nation. And then at the end, we'll share some success stories that we've had. Next slide, please. And this is our video.
Today marks the start of the 8th Annual National Apprenticeship Week. Registered apprenticeship is the gold standard for work-based learning and career opportunities. In this week, more than 1,000 events are being held to showcase its value. This year, we're also marking the 85th anniversary of the National Apprenticeship Act. That history is important. Over the years, apprenticeship played a critical role in growing the middle class. Today, under President Biden's leadership, the economy is adding millions of good jobs, and registered apprenticeships is becoming an even more important tool to build a skilled, inclusive workforce. That's why we're doing our part to get the word out. Earlier this year, we ran a 90-day trucking apprenticeship challenge. It resulted in over 100 new programs and over 570 truck driver apprentices, meeting the critical supply chain needs. Based on that success, we launched the Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Sprint. When it wraps up this week, we'll have over 160 new cybersecurity programs moving forward and over 7,000 apprentices hired into this growing field. In addition, we recently welcomed over 200 organizations to serve as apprenticeship ambassadors. They have committed to developing new programs and holding outreach activities nationwide. If you are an apprenticeship champion interested in serving as an ambassador, you can still apply. And this week, we're also thrilled to announce a new tool. It's an interactive map that displays a growing number of apprentices working across the United States. The data can be broken down by gender, age, race, and ethnicity. It will help all of us to measure our progress and where we need to continue to grow, and we will be adding more data as we roll out new features. It's an exciting time to be investing in American workers. So join us all as we highlight the value of registered apprenticeships. To learn more or find a local event, please visit apprenticeship.gov. We look forward to celebrating with you.
All right, thank you. Next slide, please.
Marks the start of the 8th.
I noticed Cody from Joby Aviation has joined us. Welcome, Cody. Appreciate you attending. So I know we have probably different levels of understanding of apprenticeship. So quickly, we just wanted to highlight a few things which we see make apprenticeship in the way we do it a little unique. And as you all know, apprenticeship is really just a training program that occurs primarily on the job, but it's also a great tool for workforce development. And what we do in our programs that you'll hear today is focused around non-traditional apprenticeship as opposed to traditional, which would be more along the lines of the trades like in construction or public safety. And apprenticeship in general, you know, when you first start, it can seem a little complicated, but it's not really complicated. There's essentially 4 parts. The first piece is on the job training, where they are learning their skills while working. The second piece is classroom education, minimum 144 hours. And the third piece is behavioral competencies, which ends up being a lot of soft skills. And for our consortium, we primarily focus on apprenticeships that last about 12 months. And at the end of it all, our apprentices receive, of course, a certificate from the Department of Labor, which is nationally recognized. And in many of our apprenticeship programs, which are also registered with California, they receive a certificate from the Department of Apprenticeship Standards. And in addition to that, when apprentices enroll in our programs, we generally, if where appropriate, give credit for prior learning. So if they already are trained in some areas, especially in the classroom piece, we'll give them some credit or even credit on the job training as well. And so our apprenticeships are primarily competency based, and some of them are hybrid, both competency and time based. And they're also built with a flexible curriculum, which we'll talk more about later. Tiffany or Jose, do you have anything to add to this slide?
So Tiffany, do you want to go?
You can go.
Okay, so what I really like about apprenticeships is we really partner with the employer to develop their workforce. So many times it's really led by the needs that they have. And so what we're finding right now is, because it's hard to find talent, we're starting to see an appreciation for apprenticeships in those non-traditional industries. And the other benefit is the opportunity for our students to go into really good paying jobs. Tiffany?
And I'll just add, it's very, a lot of employers right now are putting forth diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And apprenticeship is a perfect fit for those DEI initiatives, because typically an open requisition for a job has a certain minimum qualification required to even be qualified to apply. What an apprenticeship does is it changes the minimum qualifications and opens the net to a much wider array of candidates, because with an apprenticeship, you don't necessarily have to be qualified. You have to just be open to being trained. So that opens it up to many, many individuals from diverse backgrounds who, for whatever reason, didn't pick that particular training, but now have access to these high paying jobs because a company is willing to train them.
Great points. Next slide, please. So we would like to spend a couple minutes about employer benefits and employee benefits when we're talking to employers directly, as far as showing them how apprenticeship can enhance their current training or their development of their workforce pipelines. We like to cover all the benefits. And some of the more prominent ones include in our program that it's, as Jose mentioned, employer centric. So we start with the employer, and a lot of times we find the training they're doing already fits perfect in an apprenticeship model, and we can wrap it around what they're already doing and provide some structure to their training that's already being performed. And we are able to create a flexible model that allows us to quickly change the curriculum for them, which they have told us is important. And it turns into be a very customizable training model that we can use for both their new hires and their incumbent workers. And as we mentioned, it helps develop a pipeline to enhance employee retention, provides a clear path for advancement. So there's been examples with some of our companies where they've had training in place, but not a clear pathway, for example, of a technician to become an engineer. And so we've combined our apprenticeship programs with also pre-apprenticeship to give people an opportunity for career exploration in a pre-apprenticeship stage that links and points to an apprenticeship that's registered in another higher occupation. Of course, there's credential attainment, and there's also a lot of funding available for apprenticeship right now. Jose or Tiffany, would you like to add anything to this piece?
Yeah. So what I like about the apprenticeship program for students, it gives them that clear pathway for them to continue to advance. So they might finish one apprenticeship at a certain level. For example, in our machining program, they might finish level 1 and then wait a year and go on to level 2 and so on and so on. So that way there's this natural progression if they want to do that. And it gives them not only more advanced skill set, but also higher compensation. And in addition to that, we're also linking certain pathways to an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree. So it's really how far they want to go in the pathway that's basically ideal for them. Tiffany, anything to add?
Yeah, and I'll just add, an apprenticeship program, when designed correctly, is an HR manager's dream, especially when they have large hiring needs, especially for industries where there's niche skills. Because you never know where someone technically trained, especially if it's not like a very traditional major or program that's offered at colleges or training programs. But what apprenticeship program allows you to do is develop structured talent pipelines, whether with community colleges, work source boards, community-based organizations. It's an excellent time to create those partnerships. So an HR manager, whenever they have a hiring need, they know exactly who to go to. They know exactly the caliber of the candidates they're getting. And then on the flip side, the candidates know what the training program will be. And oftentimes the colleges or community-based organizations can even begin training before they're hired, just anticipation of those hiring needs.
Great, well said. Okay, next is the employee benefits, and we've heard a little bit about that now, but specifically it provides hands-on structured career training, career advancement opportunities. It's a good way for employers to communicate to employees what the career pathway is in the company and how to move up, because once it's registered, once it's in place, everyone can share that document and understand what the requirements are. There's recognition of prior learning and experience through these programs. And then a nice benefit in California is that when you are in an apprenticeship and you attend community college, your tuition is at no cost. There's state and federal credentials available, stackable certificates. When we do our programs, there's usually a lot of different trainings that occur, and we try to make additional certificates obtainable as they finish those different levels in the apprenticeship and with their training. And then there's additional support as far as mentorship when a person is in an apprenticeship. Jose, Tiffany, anything else?
I think from my perspective, I think you covered it all.
Yeah, and I'll just add, retention for apprentices is much higher than just regular onboarding of new employees. And it's pretty simple. Would you rather have a new job with little support, or would you rather have a new job with a lot of support where you're getting mentored and you're getting training and they're checking in on you and they're helping you be successful? So when you have that type of support, that's why the retention rate is so high. And a lot of apprentices go on to work at companies for 20 or 30 years. They end up really, if it's a good match, they stay at the company for a long time.
Great. All right. Next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of our organizations. Actually, that might be, yeah. So the Workforce Board, all of us, the West LA College, El Camino, and the Workforce Board have been partners together for actually decades. And over the years, we've developed a lot of different strategies and initiatives together. And at one point in time, a few years ago, the Workforce Board was holding sector partnership meetings in various industries, and we'd call together employers to understand what their needs are. And over and over, we kept hearing about a need for development of training programs that could do a variety of things. And at the time, apprenticeships started to move into the limelight. And employers were at the time, especially Northrop, which was our lead at the time, was interested in something that would be scalable. They gave us a list of what it had to be in order for them to make it work. Had to be scalable, it had to work wherever they do business. For a workforce board, that it can be a challenge because a lot of workforce boards are organized in a way where they're only servicing a certain area within a region. But uniquely, our workforce board is set up as a nonprofit, so it allows us to work anywhere. So we were able to meet that particular requirement because we could actually accommodate Northrop wherever they do business, wherever they are in the nation. And so that was really a little bit of a breakthrough for us with them. And then it had to be a program that was flexible, that could essentially pivot with market conditions, because as things change, they needed training programs that could change just as fast. And then they needed something that wasn't going to require a lot of internal changes, and they needed something that wasn't going to cost a lot of money. So there was a lot of things there, but we've found over time that apprenticeship really checks all those boxes. And you can, when you're talking to employers, offer apprenticeship in a way that solves a lot of their problems, and does it in a way that, as Tiffany mentioned, brings other partners together that can facilitate supporting their programs for an extended period of time. So it allowed us to put together both pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship models that would work for the employers, with one primary partner as the lead. And this was in advanced manufacturing, the advanced manufacturing sector. And then with our partners, which were already in place, different grants began to come up, and then we together apply for those grants, and it helps support the overall building of our collective programs together. Jose, Tiffany, would you like to add to that?
I think the only thing I'd like to add is that when Northrop Grumman came to the table through this partnership, they were having a hard time finding the talent they needed, and they needed to do something different. And so the idea for them was very attractive because they just couldn't find the talent. And the nice thing about our partnership with Northrop Grumman is once they bought into one pathway or one apprenticeship, quickly spiraled into other opportunities. And so once you're successful in one area, it kind of spreads throughout the company. And so it's a really great model. And I think the partnerships worked really well for Northrop Grumman, just in the fact that we've been able to scale it and attract different funding sources to continue it. Tiffany?
Yeah, and I'll just add in the story of origin and in the ongoing relationship management, there's just so much listening. It's such a practice in listening because we can't move forward with any particular agenda because it's an employer-centric model. So we really need to listen to what the needs of our employers are and see how we can work together to meet their needs. Because again, this is all about economic development and uplifting people into good jobs. And so how does the ecosystem work together? So we really need to hear what the needs are of our employers so we can try our best to meet them, and at times, which we'll talk about later, offset the funding needed to meet those needs.
And in part, understanding some of those needs, you know, we start off with some of the larger meetings. This was obviously pre-COVID, but what we've done since is have a lot of one-on-one personal meetings to really drill down to what specifically we need to do to solve specific problems within a company. And then with that information, we're able to design programs that can work for more than one business. So there's a lot of different ways of going about it. But as Tiffany mentioned, understanding where the solutions are in comparison to the needs of the company is what we spend a lot of time working on. Next slide. So the intermediary roles for the workforce board, and also to some extent the colleges do this as well. We try to not only facilitate these discussions and the funding streams, but we're also, the workforce board is a sponsor as well. But one interesting thing about being a sponsor is that we've never set out to be a sponsor in every category. We try to pull together our different partners, and each partner specializes in certain areas, and so they register the programs and the occupations that are best suited for them, and so do we. And then what we do as a group is, when participants come forward with different interests, we refer them to each other and enroll them in whichever program is appropriate. That way, we don't have to be a sponsor of every occupation. We have all these different partners that share that burden, and we just work together on both grants and referrals and participants, and enroll people as needed. And then other things the workforce board does with the schools is provide additional support. So you'll hear about some specific grants later, but we will help them register people, track people, help take the applications. We've provided some IT support, and then we help, as I mentioned, apply for grants, and we help with the grant writing. So there's a lot of different ways that an intermediary can support the overall ecosystem in the region. Tiffany, Jose, would you like to add to this slide on the things that you do specifically?
So I guess I don't have anything to add. Is this where I talk about my role or my interaction with the South Bay WIB?
Yeah, I mean, in your example, yeah, maybe this is a good time to share that stories of how your students in your machine department are referred to us with their resumes and that.
Sure. So the really nice thing about partnering with the South Bay WIB is we're able to leverage their resources to help our students. And so many times our students have barriers, and through the different programs the South Bay WIB brings to the table, they're able to access those resources to help them. And so it's a really great partnership, in addition to other opportunities, funding opportunities that they bring to the table. They've helped us on a number of grant opportunities where not only have they helped with the grant writing, but also supporting bringing industry to the table. So it's a great synergistic partnership, as well as working with West LA and Tiffany. So actually the partnership's really well, because we bring our strengths to the table to make the overall proposal that much stronger.
And I'll just add, if you notice, everything ends in flex.
Yeah.
And that's because it stands for flexible. And so every initiative is supposed to be customized based on the needs of the employer or the industry. So everything can be flexed. And so as we're moving into different sectors, these are the sectors we're currently working in. We keep flexing them to make the umbrella as wide as possible, so that many employers can take advantage of this training model. And so with working with DOL and the California Division of Apprenticeship Standards, they help you make the training plans customized so that you can work in all these different sectors and still access the funding. So the key to our success, I think, is our flexibility and our creativity to be innovative and problem solving for the different sectors.
And I can't emphasize that enough, that the industry is driving this, because I think many times industry comes to us expecting us to tell them what the solution is. And we kind of turn it around and say, what are the skill sets that you're looking for in an employee? And then design a program around that. So that's really important.
And specifically, like in this example, we're talking about with the students, they're going through the machine shop program at El Camino. We the workforce board are receiving resumes. We're qualifying them to go into potentially what we call WIOA program, Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funding that we have in an on-the-job training program. And then Northrop reviews those resumes, and if they hire them, then not only does the person get enrolled in our WIOA program, but they also get enrolled in the West LA College grant. So you can see there's both schools participating in this one person's success. They get the job, they're an apprentice, they're hired as an apprentice, they're enrolled in the apprenticeship grant with West LA College, they're enrolled in our WIOA grant for the on-the-job training program, which provides some a wage reimbursement to the employer. So the employer has a lot of incentive to hire the person, and then we're providing as a group the resources to help ensure that person is successful in the initial term of their probationary period, like the first 3 or 4 months of their time there. And then, so that's just an example of how we combine our grants with WIOA funding and a process that involves 2 schools and a pathway for the person that actually, in many cases, starts as a pre-apprentice at the schools in their initial work, which I'll talk about in a second. Actually, it's on next slide.
I just wanted to ask Sid, did you have a question? Saw your hand
Was
raised.
answered. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you. So the pre-apprenticeship was actually the first thing we did a few years ago to get started, and it basically offers people career exploration. It goes we're trying to create a pathway that starts all the way in high school and goes all the way to adulthood. And in the early ages, there's a lot of uncertainty about where to take their career. So this provides a tool and a pathway for people to understand what it would be like to work in some of these careers. And so we have pre-apprenticeship models established for all the different apprenticeships that are also registered. And we've created it in a way that's really flexible, that allows us to quickly create them as needed. And they're used nationwide by Northrop Grumman in both Maryland and Florida. And they're available to our local schools, including the colleges and the school districts. And then as I mentioned, we use resources to braid some of the funding together to help people get through these programs. But we have them in aerospace, bioscience, IT, and we're working on some others right now as well. And next slide. It basically is created very simply. It's 3 tracks, and again, it's career exploration. So the first track is something that employers said was something they really were interested in ensuring their future employees had, was work readiness skills and a lot of soft skills training. So that occurs in track 1. They get a certificate after they finish that. Track 2 is related technical skills, and we work with the employer on where that would come from. A lot of times it's an online self-paced course. It can be also courses taken at the college or the high school, but it's classroom training related to their interests. And they get certificates after finishing that as well. And the third piece is work experience, which could be what normally might have been an internship, or it could be something that involves the employer in the form of an online workshop. And so we do both ways depending on the employer. Sometimes the students are a little too young to go to an employer, like in the bioscience field. COVID prevented people from going on the shop floor in a lot of companies. So we've designed a model that works either way, depending on the employers we have. And then we combine it with some live workshops on resume building, and they get to, if it's an online version, they get to interact with HR managers. And we generally put together between 3 and 5 employers that attend on these Zoom calls, and then all the students can interact with them and ask questions about what the career's like and what they what it would be like to work at those companies. Next slide, please. Tiffany, this is your slide.
Great. Well, as Chris mentioned, part of being partners is we're all constantly looking for different funding resources that can help us scale up, expand, and enhance our work. So a couple years ago, the Department of Labor came out with scaling apprenticeship grants. And it was the perfect opportunity. It was the type of grant where it involved workforce boards, multiple colleges, employers. So it was all the foundational work had already been done. And so this was an opportunity to scale up. And so we applied together and we received a $12 million grant to enroll 5,000 apprentices across the country in advanced manufacturing. And advanced manufacturing is the sector. So it actually is flexible in that it can be any advanced manufacturing role in any company. So we have a lot of different type of manufacturing companies that are a part of our grant. We have a makeup company because they manufacture our makeup. We have food companies because they manufacture food. We have traditional manufacturing that makes space rockets and airplanes. All different types of companies doing all different types of things. This is a national grant. So if anyone on this call, has employers in any state in the United States, they could participate in this grant and receive funding and support and anything needed to help make their apprenticeship programs in this space successful. We're about halfway through the grant. And so the grant will end in June of 2024. So there's still plenty of time if any employers have any needs. And again, it could be any employers as long as the role is an advanced manufacturing role within their company.
Tiffany, what's an SME again? My mind's going blank.
That's the Society for Manufacturing Engineers. It's an industry association.
Okay, thank you.
And I think on the slide, we when we said SME, we were referring to subject matter experts,
Oh, sorry.
but it stands for both.
This is me again.
Yeah, next
So
slide.
this is one of our, you saw on the earlier slide, Health Flex. And so we've expanded into the health sector. So one of the things we were hearing from our employer partners, because West as a community college, we have a dental assisting program, is that the supply demand gap for dental assisting was way unaligned, meaning the demand for dental assistance was very high, but the supply was very low. So that means all these dental companies were marketing open job requisitions for dental assistants, all these different places, but they weren't getting any candidates applying to them. So that let them know they needed to try something different. And an apprenticeship was a perfect solution for that workforce problem, because by having an apprenticeship program, they were able to hire anyone, not just anyone who was already certified as a dental assistant. So we were able to work with them to expand their net and hire anyone with those soft skills and work readiness skills. And they are very successful. And they've these companies together have hired over 80 people and counting. There's still a large dental assistant need throughout the state of California and actually across the country. And so this program has been very successful in helping to meet the needs of the dental assistants for dental offices. That's all for me. Next slide.
So I'm up. So this is our partnership with Northrop Grumman. They came to this partnership when they couldn't find the talent that they needed. And so we've developed 3 apprenticeship tracks for them: CNC machining, electronics, and electromechanical. And these are individuals that are basically working to build spacecraft, mostly satellites, in Redondo Beach. And so for each of the tracks, basically we recruit interested students from our manufacturing programs. Typically, we ask that they take 3 courses in the area that they're studying, and we turn those resumes over to Northrop Grumman. They look at those resumes, choose candidates they want to interview, and then from those interviews, they select them to go into a pre-apprenticeship program. It's 8 weeks long. Students will receive 2 units of credit. They will also receive a stipend for participating, typically through the South Bay WIB. And in these 8 weeks, they are basically working alongside engineers and technicians, really getting to know what a job at Northrop Grumman is going to look like for them. They're gaining valuable experience that's going to go on their resume. And Northrop is basically finding out students that will be a good fit for their organization. And so at the end of the 8 weeks, they select candidates to go into their full-blown apprenticeship program. And again, these apprenticeship programs are a great model for them to develop themselves over the course of either 2 years or 4 years, depending on the track that they're in. The South Bay WIB brings all the resources that we've talked about, WIOA funding, and also West LA brings funding from their Department of Labor grant. So it's a great partnership. And what Northrop has been doing is we've been doing summer co-ops. Now, because of the increase in talent needs, we're probably going to be doing one in the spring and then one in the summer next year, and possibly one in the fall. And so again, it's a great opportunity for our students, for the community members to go into a good paying job. And I think that's it for me. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Jose. Yeah, as we've been talking about, all of us on this call are sponsors ourselves, and each school and us have our own apprenticeship occupations that we have registered. So when we're out talking to employers, we try to offer them lots of choices and lots of options. So we start with this list, and if there's something on this list that works for them, we work with that particular sponsor to help guide those employees to that program. Or if there's some new occupation that isn't on here, can't be modified, then we'll create another registration for those employers. But as you can see, we all work together and try to maximize our leveraging of resources and time between all the different partners. Next slide. So this is a list of some of the funding that we have available, and as I've been saying, we not only leverage our different sponsorships and occupations, we also leverage our funding. And maybe Tiffany, you could talk about the first 3, which are on the list that you have.
Yes, so as we mentioned, there's a lot of different funding out there right now to support apprenticeship expansion and enhancement and scalability. So I already talked about our Department of Labor grant, where we receive money to help advance manufacturing companies. So that is an opportunity for any employer. Again, it's a nominal cost when you consider the cost of training employees. So usually employers don't do this just for the money. They have to believe in the model and have a need for either talent or training, but the money is nice to help them offset the cost. $1,000 for one employee may not sound like a lot, but if you're training a cohort of 20, all of a sudden that's $20,000. So that's really how to work with our employers to consider this funding. Then California is very interested in apprenticeship. Our governor has set forth a lofty goal. I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like 500,000 apprentices by 2027, something like that. So there's a lot of money coming right now through the state of California and the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And so we've applied for 2 of those, one in healthcare and one of the arts, media, and entertainment. The reason why West chose those sectors, again, it's all about partnership. There is no apprenticeship without employers. So these are the employers that we have at the table that thought this was a good idea. And so I already talked in our healthcare grant, that's where we're doing our dental assistant apprenticeship programs. We have a strong partnership with the entertainment union. So now we're expanding into the arts, media, and entertainment, helping them shift the model of their training programs into apprenticeship. And what is nice about working with a community college, Jose alluded to this before, but we're able to offer college credit for our training. So for example, as I mentioned with the dental assistant apprenticeship, the employers are hiring them and providing the on-the-job training, but West LA is coming in and providing all the courses required by the state to become a registered dental assistant. So the students at the end of the day have a full-time job. They're getting wage increases because they're getting trained, meaning they can do more, but at the end of the day, they're also earning a college certificate that can be applied towards an associate degree or transfer. So the apprentices have lots of options. Okay, next, Jose.
So we've got 2 grants, one in bioscience, healthcare, and IT. And a lot of what Tiffany's already mentioned applies here, basically helping employers develop apprenticeship programs and helping them offset the cost of putting those programs in place. So it's a great partnership, not only for the employer, but also for the students that we attract into the pathway. And Chris, I'll turn it over.
Great. Thanks, Jose, Tiffany. Yeah, we have 3 on this list. We actually have more than 3, but these are our top 3 primary grants for apprenticeship. But as I mentioned earlier, we also have WIOA funding and other special grants and foundation grants that also support workforce training. But this first one in particular from the California Department of Industrial Relations is specifically for apprenticeship training, and it essentially adds up to about $2,000 per enrollment. It's good statewide throughout California. So employers anywhere in California could take advantage of that. And the second one there, the Department of Labor ABA grant, which is America Building Apprenticeship Grant, that one's $6 million. And uniquely, that one is not for apprenticeship training, it's for building capacity and development of apprenticeship throughout California. So it allows us to fund staff time for other organizations that are trying to become a sponsor or develop occupations, or employers that want to do either of those things as well. So we just got that a month or so ago. So it's going to allow us to provide a lot of support across the state and technical support as well to build apprenticeship programs in those categories: advanced manufacturing, healthcare, energy, IT, arts, media, and entertainment. The last one there is Irvine Foundation, and this one is for specifically female participants that are interested in getting into manufacturing in Los Angeles County. So next we want to show you one of our success stories, a couple of them, one from West LA College and 3 of them from El Camino. The first one is from West LA College, and this is a really nice story from Edwin Gamez, and he worked at a manufacturing company at the Torrance Airport. So Tiffany, you want to run that?
Hi, my name is Edwin Gamez. I am an A&P mechanic. I graduated from West LA College in March 2020. I received my A&P in September of last year also. And I've worked with Sling Aircraft, the airplane factory. So I received a notification from the South Bay workforce, and they contacted West LA, and together they were able to find this job at the airplane factory here in Torrance, California. And they were able to put me in this environment, which I really love. And I also want to thank people that get me in this program. And it's a great opportunity to get into the aviation field, and I hope people take advantage of this program because it really helps, and it promotes aviation and put people into the field.
So what's What's great about that story is he started off at West LA College, and then Tiffany found Sling Aircraft. He was able to go over there as a pre-apprentice and get some time with the company where they got to know him, and he got to know them, and then they hired him as an apprentice, and then he went through the full apprenticeship, and he's a permanent full-time employee now. So he went through the complete pathway. And I actually had the pleasure of going down there and giving him a certificate. We actually try to do this with all of our graduates, whether they're pre-apprenticeship or registered apprenticeship, to have some sort of personal delivery of their materials. For pre-apprenticeship, there's usually a cohort, and we'll have a graduation. And if there's more than one apprentice, we do that as well. We also try to get success stories at that time, but we like to, whenever possible, deliver the certificates and congratulate him. And he was really excited about finishing. And while I was there doing that, one of his coworkers wanted to become an apprentice right there. So we got another enrollment out of it. So it was kind of nice. Next slide. Jose, maybe you could talk about your graduates.
Sure. So these are 3 individuals that went through our summer pre-apprenticeship program at Northrop Grumman. They went through the recruiting process, the interviews, and actually spent 8 weeks with Northrop Grumman, again, working alongside engineers and technicians, learning what they would be doing if they got a job at Northrop. And Northrop really calls it an 8-week interview. So these 3 students really excelled. And so at the end of the pre-apprenticeship program, they were offered jobs, and they basically will enter into an apprenticeship program. They'll spend 4 years being developed as machinist. And so again, it's a pathway where they not only earn a Department of Labor certificate, but also Department of Apprenticeship Standards here in California certificate, and work their way toward a certificate from El Camino College. And if they want, they can continue their education and pursue an associate's degree or a bachelor's. But the nice thing about this 4-year apprenticeship program, what Northrop tells us, is after they finish 4 years in this apprenticeship program, they have the experience or skill level of a 10-year machinist. So this program really works, and it's been very successful for Northrop Grumman. And so they're very happy that they're working at Northrop Grumman, and they're basically making $26 an hour. They're going to get, in the apprenticeship program, they get a raise every 6 months. So they'll be doing really well. And they're excited. I don't know, Chris, do you want to add anything else? I know you brought other resources to the table through WIO and other funding.
Yeah, it's a great model that we're trying to replicate in other companies, and yeah, I think it's working out really well. And there's always on our side and the workforce side a sort of a push to connect WIOA funding with the apprenticeship programs, and this is an example of where that's really working well.
Can I add a few more things?
Sure.
So Roger there on the right-hand side, he didn't make it 2 years ago, but he was persistent enough that after his second try, he did make it. And that's because he just didn't have enough education. And so I wanted to bring that up, because we've had students where maybe they didn't interview well the first time, but they're persistent because they really want that job working for Northrop Grumman. So we've had students where they don't make the first cut or the first interview, but they gain some experience or a little more education, and then they come back and they're successful. So I just wanted to mention that, because the opportunity is always there if you work hard enough.
Great. I think we're at our last slide, and we're right on time. We have an opportunity for a few questions if anyone has any. I see Sid wants to meet about funding. Absolutely, we can do that. Does anyone have any questions about starting a program or being a sponsor or creating an occupation?
Chris, somebody has their hand up. Mara.
Oh, Mara, hi.
Hey everybody, my name is Mara. I work at Matter Hackers. We sell 3D printers and CNC machines, laser cutters. We work with a ton of CTE, community colleges, community organizations. This is fantastic. Not only am I interested in potentially becoming actually taking on some interns, but I'm curious when we talk about advanced manufacturing. I didn't actually see additive manufacturing and 3D printing, which is really like, except for the IT track, seems like it would be something that would be desirable in all the other tracks. Just curious what you've seen from employers in the demand for 3D printing.
Yeah, we're actually working on additive as an occupation, and working with at least one or two other 3D printing manufacturers about that. So great point. Jose,
Yeah.
you want to say something?
Yeah, so in our CNC, we have additive. So CNC is really about removing metal. And we have classes where we teach them about additive, and that's basically the building up of layers to build a part. And so we do have classes in that. So when our students graduate, they're very well versed in additive.
I'd love to be a resource for anybody that needs it, but I have like a little side text going on with Amelia here, so I'll be following up for sure.
Great.
Chris, there's another question.
President Limbaugh.
Yeah, I have to slide out to another meeting, but I wanted to publicly thank Tiffany for her ongoing leadership. I appreciate how she's positioning West in the apprenticeship field because I know how it's growing. And Chris, thank you for the ongoing partnership with South Bay. It's always been very valuable to us, and I feel privileged to work with you all. So I will see you all again soon, but my best to each of you for the holiday season. See you later.
Thank you so much for attending.
You bet.
Okay, any other questions? We're coming up on time here. Well, our contact information is on the screen. We're always interested in new collaborations and partners, so don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. We're happy to help you in any way we can. Any final thoughts, Tiffany or Jose?
No, I was just gonna say, we can stay on for a few minutes if someone doesn't want to ask a question in the big group. So if you have to go to an 11:30, thank you so much for coming. But if you want to stay and ask an individual question, we can stay on for a few minutes.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.